Good morning. Great to see you all. Welcome to Obi Free Church this morning. So good to have you with us. And just a particularly warm welcome if it's your first time, you're a visitor. Make yourself known. Stick around for tea and coffee afterwards. Later on, I'll be giving some information on some of the things that are going to be happening during the week, things you can be looking forward to. We're going to sing together. We're going to open God's Word together, carry on this series through Luke. And as you will have seen in the bulletin, which I'll point us to a bit later, and if you'll be getting that through email, we're going to be thinking about discipleship this morning. We're going to be thinking about what does it look like to follow Jesus? And there's some things that are the same for all of us. They're some of the things we're going to be looking at in Luke a bit later on. But there are some things that make your story different to the person sitting next to you. We talk about testimonies, and often we talk about testimonies as being the moment that you became a Christian. But really, testimonies are your whole story, aren't they? Your testimonies continue. And some of you will have wonderful testimonies over the last couple of years or so, things that God has been doing in your life, things that ways in which he's been changing you. You know, how is it that you've made it through the last few years? And so I think sharing our testimonies can be a powerful thing. And I wonder if maybe that's something we could be doing together more often, perhaps after the service, especially being able to say to somebody, not just in the church, but evangelistically, this is my story. This is what God has been doing in my life. And I think that's incredibly powerful, isn't it? What could Jesus do for you as well? This is my story. We're gonna sing some of those words. A great hymn. It reminds us as what have been done for us. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of his spirit, washed in his blood. This is my story. This is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Let's start by standing and singing these words together.
Praising my Savior.
Let's pray. Father, thank you that this isn't just my individual story, but this is our story. And we're reminded of that as we come together and we sing these words together. But thank you again that even more so, this is your story, that you have caught us up into what you are doing in this world. As you are saving your people, as you are building your kingdom, thank you that because this is your story, we can be sure that it will have a good ending. Amen. First thing I just want to ask is just for you to sort of guess now, what do you think the human body is worth? Any ideas? Well, if you could put a price on it, what price would you put on the human body? You've got a hand up. Very polite. Yes, what do you think? £10? I reckon £10 would get you a piece of an ear. I actually did read that today, that a little bit of skin off the ear, somebody will pay you $10 it was actually for that. So yeah, £10, a little bit more than £10 probably. What else would you put? What price would you put on a human body? I can hear a lot of mumblings, but I can't. Yes.
When Rosie and I got married, the marriage license was 7 shillings and 6 pence.
7 shillings and 6. Any idea? I mean, yeah, go on.
A million.
Huh?
A million.
A million? 10 what? 1,000 what? Thousand? Just or £1,000? Well, somebody's added it all up. If you were to sell your individual body parts, they reckon you could get 45 million for a human body. Sounds a lot, doesn't it? And that's sort of, hair is very valuable for making things like wigs, skin for skin grafts, blood for blood donations. Apparently all the bits of the human body are worth a lot of money. But realistically, you can't sell all your body parts because then you wouldn't have any left. They think actually, if you were to get a value for the human body, it'd be 500,000, 500,000. That's what you were worth, apparently, 500,000. But interestingly, we put much more value on people than that, don't we? Than £500,000. That will get you a house nowadays. But is a person more valuable than a house? So my question, I guess, is what about a soul? How much is a soul worth? Bit more than a body, I guess. Well, we'll get to that in a second, but I want to give some stuff out because we got a lot of chocolate in our house at the moment. It was Mary's 30th birthday yesterday. She's dairy free still. People seem to be giving us chocolate. We can't eat it. So I was going to give some out. So I've got some celebrations, and I thought I'd let you have some. Does anybody want one? Just only 4. What do adults not like chocolate anymore, or is it because it's Lent? Maybe I don't know. But I'm going to give you a choice. Okay, you can have. I've got quite a lot, so I was going to say 1. You can have 2 chocolates right now, like right now, if your parents let you, to eat, or you can have a voucher. And my vouchers, look, they're very professionally made. This voucher means that one day in the future, I'll give you 5 chocolates, maybe. You have to trust me that if you look after the bit of paper, I'll give you some more chocolates in the future. That's your choice. What would you rather? Would you rather have the 2 now, or this, or this? You want a voucher? Yeah, you can have a voucher. I'll give you a voucher. Does anybody want the chocolate now? Yeah, a few people. Did you like Bounties? And a Milky Way. Do you want to just give a couple more out? Does anybody else want the chocolate now? Yeah, well, you can have this instead. That's fine. Can you give out some of these bits of paper instead? Oh, do you want the chocolate? Now that could be when do you guys go away? Oh my goodness, I think you've made a terrible decision. And because I don't mean after the service, this could be months in advance. So you're gonna have to be waiting for that voucher. I know. Look, his face has just completely dropped. This is a future hope that you're looking forward to right now, not a current hope. Well, I wonder if I offered you some other choices, what would you give? Would you want maybe £1 million right now, or to live a year longer? What would you choose for that? £1 million right now to live a year longer, yeah. You don't know? No, I don't know either. It's hard, I think, sometimes to choose between choices now and future choices. Because the future choices, they could look really good, couldn't they? But actually, we like to have stuff right now, stuff physically that we can see, that we can enjoy right now, and not have to wait for this thing that may or may not happen. How do you choose between those two things? And the question that the Bible gives us, and we're going to be looking at in the passage later, is you've got to choose between the world now or your soul. And what would you choose? What is more valuable? Your world, your salary, your job security, your house, your car, your family, your friends, or your future soul? That's a big question. Because is your soul worth it? Is it worth all that stuff? I mean, the big question today for some people is, do you believe you have a soul? Or is the physical stuff all there is? And we've got a decision to make like those chocolates, haven't we? We can have things now in the present, and they are good things that we can enjoy, but we are being offered something better in the future that we have to look forward to. And God has made promises, and his promises are so much better than my promises, because you can be sure you will definitely get them. And I'm amazingly impressed that these guys chose the future hope. Isn't that fantastic? And actually, when you make this choice, you're going to end up losing one. You don't want to lose this eternal future. You don't want to lose your soul. And Jesus says, if you were offered the entire world today, the entire world and everything in it, but it meant you couldn't be with Jesus, it'd be so much better for you to say no. Because you're going to get something even better. I think it's wonderful, isn't it, that we see here God putting a price on you. And it's not 500,000, it's not even in the millions. God says that your soul, is worth more than the world. You are so valuable. And so it's worth saying no now to look forward to time spent together with him. We're going to sing a song. It's going to be on a video, I think, and there's going to be some actions and stuff. I think it's called Wisdom. Is that what it's called? Yeah. It's called Wisdom. We're going to sing that together. Brilliant. So it's fairly new, but feel free to join in as well. Let's stand and sing this together.
There is something that's better than the latest toy. There is something that never can be destroyed. It's worth more than jewels and gold or anything money can buy. W-I-S-T-O-M spells wisdom. I need it. W-I-S-T-O-M in your word I find it. I need your wisdom, Lord, today. Left to my own self, I always tend to go astray. But in the Bible, you reveal your perfect way. You teach me to think like you instead of being a fool. Don't wanna be that. W-I-S-T-O-M spells wisdom. I need it. W-I-S-T-O-M in your word I find it. I need your wisdom, Lord, today. So much I need to hear your truth. I need your wisdom, Lord. I wanna love it, live it, learn it, read it. W-I-S-D-O-M. I wanna know it, think it, speak it, breathe it. W-I-S-D-O-M. I wanna love it, live it, learn it, read it. W-I-S-D-O-M. I wanna know it, think it, speak it, breathe it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sure. And apparently there's actions as well. So we'll get there in the end. There is the crash stuff. So if the kids want to go out, now would be a good time. While they do that, I'm just going to give you a couple of notices. The bulletins are there at the back for you. I should have pointed this out before the first song, but the order of service with the words on for all the songs and the reading, you can go get that at the back as well. So feel free to do that. Just a couple of things to point out. So this evening, 5:30, here in the church hall is Passion for Life, a 45-minute session with a presentation by video by Jeremy Marshall. Says he's a distinguished Christian businessman living with incurable cancer, and he's going to be speaking about answering tough questions with Jesus. Wow, there will be some tough questions, right? And that's a guy with a story, a testimony that is going to be incredibly helpful for people who are also going through suffering and tough times. So come along 5:30 this evening to see that. And then coffee break on Tuesday, got Richard Brewster from Avenue. He's going to be coming along. He's going to be speaking about I know who holds the future. Very, very much linked together, aren't they? Those two things, tough questions and also trusting in the one who knows the future and holds it. And then table tennis on Wednesday and church members meeting here in the hall at 7:30. So if you want any more information about any of those things, just grab the bulletin at the back or check your emails. It'd be good to spend some time in prayer. There's so much going on in the news at the moment. And actually, if you do grab the bulletin at the back, there's a number of prayer points giving you some thoughts of things to pray through, things to pray for. But it'd be good to spend some time, I guess, praying for what's on your heart, particularly. There'll be different focuses on different people in this room. There's those who are unwell at the moment. There's those in the church family who are suffering, who have recently lost loved ones. More widely speaking, there's war, mass executions in Saudi Arabia. Whatever it is, why don't we spend some time bringing it to God in prayer? I'm going to read Psalm 47, and then we're going to spend some moments in quiet. Psalm 47. Clap your hands, all peoples. Shout to God with loud songs of joy. For the Lord, the Most High, is to be feared, a great king over all the earth. He subdued peoples under us and nations under our feet. He chose our heritage for us, the pride of Jacob whom he loves. God has gone up with a shout, the Lord with the sound of a trumpet. Sing praises to God, sing praises. Sing praises to our King. Sing praises. For God is the King of all the earth. Sing praises with a psalm. God reigns over the nations. God sits on his holy throne. The princes of the peoples gather as the people of the God of Abraham. For the shields of the earth belong to God. He is highly exalted. We're going to take a moment to stop, to step back, away from all the turmoil, and just remember that God is seated on the throne. He is king above all. Even the kings of the earth belong to him. And we might not understand what that looks like when it gets down to the nitty-gritty of life, but it's true. And the Bible here says that should lead us to praise. This is a psalm written about a group of people who had known tremendous loss. And actually knowing that God was above all, knowing that God was ruling, for them was this source of great praise. Clap your hands, all you people, despite their suffering. And I wonder, maybe if you don't know what to pray in these quiet moments, maybe you could just simply repeat some of the words of this psalm. But let's bring to God, who is sat on his throne, what's on our hearts. Let's approach him and lay it before him just for a few minutes of quiet together. Let's do that. Father, thank you that we can come to you in prayer. We can come to you with groans and weeping and praise and joy, whatever it is. Father, thank you that we can come before you. Sometimes we don't have the words, but ultimately what we want to do is just acknowledge our dependence on you. Acknowledge that we don't have the answers. Acknowledge that we can't do everything. But actually, this world is in your hands. You are the King seated on your throne above all. And Father, we just want to say that we love you and we trust you. And thank you that you love us and you care for us and you want what's good for us. And so we bring all this before you now, knowing that you care for how we feel and you care for your kingdom and for your people. And we want to thank you for that. Amen. I guess as we go out and we listen to the news and we talk to people, and there's a lot of voices, isn't there, that we hear every day. Some good, unfortunately, majority bad, and they speak into our lives and they bring fear and they bring stress, anxiety, and that's partly why it's good to stop and have a moment, some time of prayer and quiet. But there is another voice, isn't there, that cuts through it all, and that's the call of Christ. And that's the voice we want to listen to. That's who we want to listen to this morning as we open his word in a moment. That's above all other voices what we want to hear speaking to our lives. We're going to sing of that voice, the call of Christ, above the voices of the world around me, my hopes and dreams, my cares and loves and fears. The long-awaited call of Christ has found me. The voice of Jesus echoes in my ears. That's what we want as we come to his word. Let's stand and sing together above the voices. you take a seat. So I want to turn to Luke chapter 9. I'm going to be reading from verse 23. I've got two passages, so I'll say what they both are, but they're on, if you want to turn to page 867 in the church Bible there. So we're going to be reading 23 to 29, and then 57 to 62. And that should come up on the screen behind me as well. So Luke 9, 23 to 27. And he said to all, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words, of him will the Son of Man be ashamed when he comes in his glory and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. But I tell you truly, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God. And then if you just turn the page to verses 57 to 62. As they were going along the road, someone said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. To another he said, follow me. But he said, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. And Jesus said to him, leave the dead to bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Yet another said, I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home. Jesus said to him, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. Father, just help us now this morning as we come to your word to hear your call, to hear your voice, and to see what it is you're saying to us about what it looks like to follow you. Amen. So if you want to keep those passages open and just, I guess, be ready to flick between the two. We've got two chunks of scripture this morning with a little bit of a gap in between. But this whole section, including the bit in the middle, is characterized by this question that we've been asking already. What does it look like to follow Jesus? What does it look like to be a disciple? Now, what I love about this section is the way the question gets answered. The way this is shown to us is that Jesus is teaching his disciples what it looks like to follow him whilst they literally follow him. Isn't that great? They're literally following him to Jerusalem. They're on the road to Jerusalem. They're on the road to the cross, ultimately. And so they're physically walking with him to his crucifixion. And whilst that happens, Jesus is saying, you've also got to walk this road, but spiritually. This is what your future is going to look like. This is something you're going to have to do one day as when I'm gone. And so there's two sections we're going to look at. The first section is that verses 23 to 27. Jesus is teaching the current disciples what it looks like to follow him, what they've got in store for themselves. And then that second section, verses 57 to 62, you've got these three would-be disciples. They're prospective disciples, and each of them have something that is stopping them from following Jesus. And we'll look at them in turn a little bit later on. So firstly, section 1, Jesus teaches the disciples that in order to follow him, you've got to do one thing. Just one thing. Take up your cross. That's the main point. Take up your cross. If anyone was to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. Now, just for some context, just before this, Jesus has just asked his disciples, who do you say I am? Who am I? And Peter's just made this amazing, unbelievable announcement. He says, Jesus, you're the Messiah. You're the Savior of the world. He gets it. He finally realizes this is the man who's going to save us. And the twist is that the Messiah, Jesus tells us, well, the way he's going to save people is he's got to die, essentially. Because in response to Peter's announcement, Jesus says, yes, I am the Messiah, but I've got to suffer. I've got to be rejected. I've got to die. And 3 days later, I've got to rise again. Straight away, Jesus says, don't get any wrong ideas about what following the Messiah looks like. This isn't going to be like joining a powerful political party. This isn't going to be a glorious conquest. This isn't a bandwagon for you to jump on. You're not going to move up in the world by following me. Because Jesus explains where you're going to go if you follow him. You're following Jesus to the cross. Verse 23, we've just read it. Take up your cross daily. That's where we're going. Now, it's an interesting saying. It's obviously a saying that's part of their culture, having lived in a Roman-occupied area. It comes from the Roman tradition. By if you're sentenced to death by crucifixion, you got to make this long road to your place of execution. And as you do it, you carry your cross. You carry the crossbar that they are ultimately going to nail you to. This heavy piece of wood that you lumber down the street, back-breaking piece of wood. And as you do so, you have the crowds who are jeering and jostling and shouting. And as you walk past, they remind you, and that huge bit of wood that you carry reminds you that you are on your way to your death. Your life is over. That's the whole point of carrying your cross. You're already a dead man. There's no way out of this. Your life is finished. Essentially, you're being reminded constantly, you are not part of this world anymore. This is not your world anymore because you're carrying your cross. Now, thinking about it, this phrase is a very strange one for Jesus to use because as of yet, the disciples don't know he's going to be crucified, do they? For us looking back, it seems obvious the foreshadowing, but for the disciples, they're probably thinking, oh, my goodness, Jesus, that is strong language to talk about crucifixion. Quite the exaggeration, Jesus. And I wonder what they felt a few weeks later when they saw him carrying his cross down the road. When they saw him walking to his death. And that's the picture that Jesus leaves with them. This is what it means to be a disciple, Jesus says. And it's not a very pleasant picture. That's the road you're walking on if you're following me. Because Jesus has to walk that road. Jesus has to die. It's the only way we can be saved. And if you want to be with God, if you want what Jesus gets, if you want the glory of heaven, if you want to follow Jesus to the glory of heaven, you've got to follow him through the suffering, the rejection, the self-denial, the humility. And it sounds awful. It sounds hard. And it makes you wonder, why would I do that? Why? Is it worth it? Well, it is worth it. Because after the cross comes the resurrection. After the cross comes glory. Jesus says to them here, I will rise again. I will come into my glory and into the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. But if you are too ashamed to follow me on the road here, then how can you ever follow me there? How can you ever hope to follow me into glory? Without the cross here, I can't get there. If Jesus wasn't able to do it, why do I think that I wouldn't need to suffer? We're happy to say that Jesus suffered for us. But sometimes we think, therefore, we can do without it. But Jesus says to his disciples, if you want to be a disciple, if you want to follow me, you've got to deny yourself and you've got to take up your cross daily. And there's a few reasons why. You can read them throughout the New Testament, but here's one reason why. Because you need to be reminded of the very same thing that those people were reminded of as they walked to their executions. You need to be reminded you are not part of this world anymore. You don't belong here. That's what carrying the cross meant. Remember, they were reminded as they did it that they're on their way to their death. They're not part of this world anymore. And for them, that would have been a source of fear and loss. But for the Christian, that should fill the Christian with unbridled joy. Because the world to come, that's the one they belong to. And it is far better. And I want to be reminded of that, don't I? I want to be reminded of that every day. I want to carry my cross every day because I want to remember that I am not part of this world anymore. I am heading somewhere better. I'm heading somewhere incredible. This is not my world. And it's like we said earlier, isn't it, in the little kids section, if you could choose this world or if you could choose the next world, there is absolutely no competition. And yet as Christians, we regularly get comfortable here. In fact, we get so comfortable that we put down the cross. We forget where we're going. We try and stay. Have you ever been in a situation where you've just got somewhere to be? You know you need to get up and go out, and there's somewhere, and it's somewhere good. It's somewhere you want to go, somewhere exciting, but the sofa's very comfortable. And actually, you're wearing quite comfortable clothes, and you don't want to have to get changed and get up and put something smarter on. And outside, you can just hear the rush of the wind, and you can hear the rain pounding the window. And inside, you've just got the crackle of the fire and you're comfortable. And where you're going is good, but it's so tempting just to stay, isn't it? A little bit longer. But ultimately, if you stay, you're going to miss out. And like Jesus has been saying, you can't have both. And what this passage is talking about is things of eternal consequence. You pick up your cross and you follow Jesus, you follow him through death to heaven, or you stay and through death face God's wrath. That's the choice. If you want to follow Jesus, you've got to take up your cross. This world isn't worth it if it means forfeiting your soul. And we're going to get to see what it looks like to die to this world and to take up your cross. And there's a lot more going on in these verses. But in order to do so, in order to know what it looks like, we're going to move on to look at the three people in section 2, verses 57 onwards. These three guys. Now, the whole point, remember, is you're going to pick up your cross, you're going to suffer, follow Jesus to glory, or you're going to choose not to follow Jesus. That's the choice, isn't it? And forfeit your soul. And there's three people in this passage, and we get to see why they chose not to follow Jesus. Three people that choose things over Jesus. Person one, firstly. Person one, verses 57 to 58, chooses security and status over Jesus. Jesus and his disciples, they're They're walking along the road, and a man comes up to them and says, Jesus, I will follow you wherever you go. Now, this man has potential, doesn't he? That's a pretty good start for a prospective disciple. He wants to follow Jesus. Great. He's got zeal. He's got passion. He's got initiative. He's the one who does the following. But here's the question. Does he really understand where it is it will take him? Does he really understand what he's asking? I mean, we do. We've just heard Jesus talk about it. He's going to end up going to the cross. But if this man was there that day and watched Jesus get whipped and bruised, naked and bleeding, would he still run up to Jesus and say, I will follow you wherever you go? Jesus doesn't seem to think so. Because Jesus says to him, look, following me is hard. Even foxes have dens, birds have nests, but not me. Some people here think he's talking about Herod and he's talking about the Romans, because there's other times where he calls Herod a fox, and the Roman symbol is a bird, it's an eagle. And I'm not so sure that it's as simple as that, but the point is that everybody's got a home in Israel. Everyone's got comfort and status, but not Jesus. Jesus is dispossessed. He's disinherited. He's the true Israel, but he's rejected by Israel. He's rejected by the people. Jesus has nothing to offer those who look for material wealth or security. But for those who are poor, for those who are suffering and in danger, he offers everything. This guy says he will follow Jesus. But when it comes down to it, he's not following Jesus for the right reasons. He wants the glory, but he doesn't want the suffering. Jesus says, you're not going to follow me when things get hard. You have to be prepared for that. And the reality is that there will be suffering. But we know it's worth it, don't we? Because we know what's coming after. And if you are in suffering or hardships, I guess we can be encouraged that we're not doing anything wrong. That's the normal human experience. That's part of living in this world. But remember, Jesus has walked through it already. Jesus has suffered everything you've suffered. He's felt everything that you felt. And now look at him. He's in glory. And if we're following him, that's where we're ending up. And it's not going to last forever, the suffering. There's another world, and we belong to that world now. Take up your cross and follow him through the hardship, but to this wonderful future. But that's the first person. He wasn't prepared to follow Jesus for the right reasons. Person two makes a different choice. Person two chooses religion over Jesus. Religion over Jesus. A very different person to person one. The first thing you notice is that person two doesn't actually come to Jesus. If you look in verse 59, it's Jesus that calls him. Jesus says to him, follow me. And he gives an answer that seems unusual to us. He says, Lord, let me first go back and bury my father. I don't know about you, but that seems pretty legitimate, doesn't it? Even in our culture, burying the dead is a big deal. But in their culture, it was even bigger. This action, this deed of burying your father is this deed of loving obedience that ranks above all other good deeds. It's a fantastic thing to do. It's a wonderful, important, good thing to do. In fact, in a number of places in the Bible, in the end of Genesis, a few times it says that burying a parent is the chief responsibility of a son. The Roman writer Josephus says that this is a religious duty that takes precedence over all others. That's how important it is. And so to refuse to keep this religious duty of burying your father is basically the same as disobeying God. That's what they believe. Because you're not keeping the fifth commandment. You're not honoring your mother and father. So why does Jesus respond so harshly? What does Jesus have against this response, this answer the man gives? Well, I guess the first thing is, Jesus isn't a normal man asking for a follower. Because it's important, isn't it? The person that does the calling. In those days, if a beggar was to call out to you in the street, the majority of people would just walk on by. They wouldn't listen. Doesn't matter if a beggar is calling them, not in those days. But what about if that person was a politician or a leader? Well, maybe they'd more likely answer the call, right? In that situation. But this isn't even a politician or leader. This isn't even a famous person. This man who is doing the calling, this is the king. This is the king of the universe. This is somebody speaking with the full weight and authority of God himself. The king here is calling to be obeyed. And above all else, you know what takes precedence? A summons from the king. And Jesus is saying here, there is one religious commitment that is more important than all the others, but it's not burying your father. It's following me. That's even more important. In fact, that is the most important thing. There is no point keeping all these other religious rules if you don't have me, Jesus says. Because in Jesus, that's the only way you can have life. So what's the point in the rest? The rest can come after. Without Jesus, you're spiritually dead. That's what Jesus calls him. He says the dead can bury their own dead. And if you're missing Jesus, then you're just as dead as your father is spiritually. Because only in Jesus can you have life. This man is missing Jesus. Everything else comes second to that. I told this story elsewhere a few weeks ago, but it's striking and it's hugely relevant here. It's about a man who was missing Jesus. It's about a guy called Wes. He's a leader at a church in America, was leading there for 10 years, raised in the church in a Christian family, grew up surrounded by Christians, would have gone to the youth groups, student groups. He loved it, absolutely loved it, felt comfortable in it. And people do, because the church is a wonderful community. It's a great place to be part of, isn't it? He enjoyed the stuff that he was learning. He found that he didn't just enjoy it, he flourished. He enjoyed answering Bible trivia. He enjoyed learning stuff. He answered all the questions. He knew his Bible. And he goes to college and he wrestles with all the stuff that he's been learning. And he starts asking these questions and having doubts. Realizes that actually he might be wrong about some of the big things in life. Either way, he loves the church anyway, so he becomes a minister. He's got a lot of Christian friends. He enjoys the community. So he thinks, why not? Why not have a job in the church? But then he realizes that actually he's missing something. And he realizes that in many ways he's just posing. He's not being authentic. And he starts asking the question, do I really believe this? And he looked like he did believe it. He was doing all the right things. And he said that he realized that he viewed Christianity as just this religious exercise, this means to the end, just a way of improving life and have some extra morals and living conditions. And he uses Christianity to try and help people. He does, morally, improve their life, tries to help other people who've been hurt or rejected. And he says the only difference, though, between him and somebody that helps people outside the church is he just uses religious language. That was the only difference. And he said a number of his colleagues believed the same as him. In fact, he meets up with another church leader and they have a conversation together, having a drink. And the other church leader asks him, do you really think there is some being out there, a God? Oh, no, he replied. And they both burst into laughter. Jesus? No. Doesn't actually follow Jesus. Doesn't actually believe that he died and rose again. Doesn't believe that it's Jesus that really saves people. He says all he's interested in is the community, is the religious stuff, trying to help people. But he's got no actual faith in God. He doesn't actually follow Jesus. And I wonder how many people come to church for the same thing, for the good stuff that we get, for the community, but completely miss Jesus. And it's all show, this empty religion, and it looks good, but it doesn't deal with the issue. It doesn't save people. It doesn't deal with sin. It doesn't deal with the issue of rebellion against God. That is humanity's greatest problem, isn't it? Sin. And it pains me that this man, Wes, if he continues like that, if he does all this religious stuff, it doesn't matter all the show, it doesn't matter the pomp and the rules. What matters is he's not following Jesus. And he's going to lose his soul. That's what we read in verse 25. That if this man tries to save his own life, but doesn't go to Jesus, he will lose his life. His soul is forfeit. If this man is ashamed of Jesus and his words, then Jesus will be ashamed of him when he comes into his glory. Religion can't save you. Only Jesus can save you. So you've got to follow him. That's the most important thing. That's the mistake being made by this person number 2 in this passage. He believes that there are other things, religious commitments, that are more important than committing to following Jesus. That's person 2. So finally, person 3. Person 3 chooses to look at the world over looking at Jesus. Chooses to look at the world instead of looking at Jesus. Again, seems to have a pretty good excuse. Says, I will follow you, Lord, but first, let me go back and say goodbye to my family. Now, again, I would be pretty pleased with that response. It seems positive, doesn't it? This is a person that wants to follow Jesus, but he's just got his priorities, that he wants to say goodbye to his family, the people in his house. Seems fine. But don't forget, this is Jesus he's talking to. And so Jesus knows this man. Jesus knows this person's heart. And he also knows you can't be a good disciple if you're living in 2 worlds at the same time. If you're living in 2 worlds at the same time, like we said about the carrying the cross, you know that you belong to another world, and sometimes we try and stay in this world. Now, thankfully, I don't need to come up with a nice illustration here. Jesus gives us one. He gives us a great illustration, and it's about plowing. I don't know if many people know much about plowing. Didn't know a great deal. We watched a show called Clarkson's Farm. Don't know if you've seen this. It's about journalist and TV pundit Jeremy Clarkson. He tries to run his own farm. He's owned this farm for years, but other people have run it for him. And he decides, I'm going to give it a go. How hard can it be? Turns out it's pretty hard. So he does some plowing, and what he realizes is it's so difficult to get it all nice and straight, all lined up, the right distance apart from each other, in perfect rows, all nice and neat. And Jesus says, being a disciple is like plowing. That's your job, to plow. And if you want to plow nice and straight, you got to look dead ahead. You got to look forward. You got to fix your eyes on where you're going so that you can make sure that you go nice and straight. But if you look back, if you turn your eyes away from where you're going, what's going to happen? You're going to start going off course. If you twist your body and look at the world around you, if you've not got your eyes fixed dead ahead, you're going to ruin it. You're going to ruin what you're making. Your steering is off. You're not paying attention. And therefore, what you're doing is pointless. It's not fit for purpose anymore. And Jesus is saying that this man is doing that. He's taking his eyes off Jesus. He's looking somewhere else. He's turning his head to the side. And he keeps turning his head, and he keeps turning his head until he can no longer see where he's heading. And how can you follow Jesus if you can't see where he's heading? And his work becomes utterly worthless. And you know, there are so many people who profess faith and say they want to follow Jesus, but they end up twisting their bodies in a different direction, looking at something else. And that's what this whole section's been about, isn't it? To not look at the distractions, to get rid of the old life, get rid of the things in the world that distract you, because you don't belong to this world anymore. You don't belong to all that stuff. You've got to fix your eyes ahead to Jesus to see where you're going. This third encounter, it's reminiscent of Elijah and Elisha. In 1 Kings 19, Elijah calls Elisha to be a prophet. And at the time, interestingly, Elisha is plowing. That's what he's doing. And Elijah calls him, and he does get to say goodbye to his family. But what he does next is very interesting. He takes his plow, he takes the yoke, and he burns it. He just stops plowing, he just burns it all. And then on the fire, he takes his oxen and he cooks them. And he eats them and he shares them with the people around him. Is that incredible? The old life is gone completely. He gets rid of it. He burns the yoke. He cooks the oxen. No more distractions. No more twisting my life in multiple directions. I'm going to focus on one thing. I'm going to focus on following Jesus. What are you going to focus on this morning? What is your focus on? What are you looking at? Are your eyes drifting away from Christ? Is your body turning as you look at things in the world around you because it looks good and you want it? And are you questioning, is following Jesus worth it? Things like moving house, whether it's worth it. Is it worth giving up money for Jesus? Is it worth giving up your Sundays? Is it worth giving up your time? Is it worth persecution? Is it worth suffering? Well, Jesus says if you focus on those things, not only will you lose them anyway, one day you'll also lose your life. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Christ is in glory, sat at the right hand of the Father, and so that is where your life is heading. It is worth it. Keep your eyes fixed on him. Don't look to the right or the left. Don't twist your body around and try and live in two worlds at the same time. That is the world that we're heading for. If you follow Jesus, Colossians 3 says this, and it sums it up beautifully. If then you've been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. For you have died. You're carrying your cross. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Take up your cross and follow me. We're going to sing together, Be Thou My Vision, because we want to fix our eyes on Jesus. We want to look forward. Through what we're going through now, we want to look forward to where we're heading. This wonderful glory where we will appear with him. There's a few verses that are great in this song, but I want us to read out this one. Riches I need not, nor vain empty praise. Thou mine inheritance now and always. Thou and thou only, the first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. High King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joys, O bright heaven's sun. Let's stand and respond and sing together. I'm going to read Colossians 3 again. If you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Father, thank you that that is a promise, that we will appear with you in glory. That yes, we have died, but let us not forget that we have risen again with you. That our life is hidden with you, hidden, safe, and secure, never to be snatched away. Father, may that be a source of great encouragement to us as we go through suffering, as we go through this world, that we remember that that's where we are heading is where you are right now. Father, fix our minds on that this week. Amen. Please do take a seat. That's the end of our meeting this morning. Do stick around, join us for some tea, for some coffee. and just a nice time of fellowship together. And don't forget to grab the bulletin for any of the info happening this week. And if you're able to, we'll see you later at 5:30 this evening. Have a good afternoon.